first thing I always say to my dear friend Nicole when we see each other, that is that, we always talk about welcome to the arena. And we talk regularly, I would say. We try to do it weekly because we are working on a number of things. But this time it's a different conversation. It's about an amazing book Nicole has just released, Help
Thank you.
Wanted.
Thank you.
And it's all about how do we actually find these unique people that fits our culture. And, how do we hire for human magic? And actually, how do we actually make sure we do this pre-work really, really well? So we actually not just can deliver the service and the quality we want to, but actually also build a team that can outlast whatever they're met of challenges on their way. And as I was going through this book, I was thinking, I'm really looking forward to share this with you guys, because I think this is often an area that is, people think they have a rigorous process, but they're maybe focusing on very technical thing or behavioral things and not really getting deep enough and find out maybe people probably nodding out there. After 3 months, I actually didn't know the person I was hiring.
Yep.
And that could both be, sometimes to give you an advantage, and other time it definitely give you a downside as well. So welcome to the show again. And you've been on the show before in episode 77, and also as part of the 6 tenets of agile hospitality, which is 180. I'll put those 2 episodes in the show notes. But I think for people that hasn't been part of the those 2 conversations yet, maybe just give us a short landing into who Nicole is and the work you do. And I know that's really hard, but and then we'll dive into the book straight away and try to create some value for the people out there.
Okay, so hello, hospitality mavericks out there. Hello, listeners, part of the community. I'm super happy and just over the moon to be back again and continuing our conversations and the conversations with Michael. So the first off, who am I? Oh my gosh, try not to add the labels. So I'll say kind of where space in which I operate. So I help independent luxury hospitality craft signature, human-led cultures and employer brands that have a dash of human magic. And most importantly, these are hospitality brands that cannot be copied. That's the space in which I operate. And then, so a few titles to throw on. I have worn many of the old HR titles, HR director, people and culture director. I say more, this is the kind of headings that kind of give signposts to the work that I do. So I say I'm a culture architect. I'm an alt HR practitioner and advocate, looking at HR in a completely different way. And I focus on people, culture, and employer branding. So I think more as opposed to labels, that's the kind of space in which I operate. And of course, most recently, which is a new jacket I'm trying to get used to and wearing here, which is author as well of Help Wanted. And I'm super over the moon and chuffed that we're going to be talking about that today.
And I thought this was it's maybe not a question directly connected into the book, but I think it is when I read the book, because I've actually asked some of our other guests about this. Have we actually in this industry, hospitality, lost the art of hospitality? What is your view on this? And it's like, and it's not like to prompt you, but actually some people will say we are on our way to lose it. Some people very clear that the last year says we have lost it. It's become transactional. But where do you see it when it comes from the people you work with, and how do you define the art of hospitality?
Okay. A very Michael hospitality maverick, multi-layered question.
Yeah.
Let's look at it. That's a good one. Let me just pause a minute. I'd say it's more on like a continuum. So whether we've actually lost it or we're losing it. I think we're on this kind of pathway here. And I would say before we say if we need to look for it, I think, again, it's about intent. So if your intention, and let's maybe a bit controversial, if your intention is to have a hospitality business that or industry that speaks to people are our greatest asset, and you are about, turning, return on investment in terms of profitability, and you're running less art and more of a business that needs to make that return on investment, I'd say, and that is a category that you actually want to be in, I'd say fine. But if you are something is missing, something is nagging at you, that the original idea of hospitality, of hosting, of making people feel cared for, welcome, sense of belonging and community, and all the things that we're seeing on LinkedIn and in the kind of interpretations of hospitality now, that's what is missing and what is needed. Creating those human spaces and that human connection in the world that we're in right now, that is seemingly careening down one path that is appearing and feeling less human, then I'll say in some spaces, we have lost the art of hospitality, and in others, we're teetering on the edge. And we have an opportunity now. We either go down one route, and if that's your style, all good for you. But if it's something that you're wanting to create that more human connected spaces of belonging, not just for guests, but also for anyone, any people in any of the people in your community. So that includes your team, and that includes the community in which you operate. Then we are, kind of not quite, if we're not over the edge, we're certainly teetering on the edge. So we have an opportunity to, pull up, quickly before the crash.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because we had the conversation the other day, and then I was in London for 2 days for different dinners, and there's a big event called Service, a really great event where you meet a lot of hospitality people. And it's actually also the pressure from the outside, I feel, in those conversations, outside pressure of the world. It's not hospitality as an industry, and it's also us as human. We have to think about, are we actually hospitable to each other? And there's so much divide in the world, and we are not going to solve this in this conversation. But I think that has a play as well. And you could feel that everybody talking about, very visible and invisible pressures in their life and at work. Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
And that impacts how hospitable you are, I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
the act of making others feel something positive. Yeah.
Correct. So again, I mean, we can, macro level hospitality as a human condition and state of being, but then we're narrowing it down to what we speak about, which is the hospitality as a business. I shy away from saying hospitality industry, because I think that is our overhang, the hangover from an industrial era and the way of thinking and doing business, which I would say I didn't see hospitality. It never sat comfortably with me, as that's what hospitality is, the unique nature of the human-led nature of our business. We are close to almost as the only other is healthcare, where yes, there's technology, there's systems, there's processes, and you have to make it profitable because you have to feed and support the purpose of your business. Absolutely. But the whole matter of it is about humans need to be at the center. So I think, if we're looking at our business, our art of hospitality, this is the space now that we need to kind of jump back into. And hospitality, I think, in amongst all this craziness, hospitality is uniquely positioned as, whether you call it antidote or whether you call it the alternative positioning of what we human beings are looking for. I think to fight against, technology, we can't be Luddites. Right? The technology is a technology, and it's human beings that are creating it. But we can have the alternative that is not an afterthought, but is a strong counterbalance to where the world is heading right now. I think hospitality as a business, as a space, as a way of thinking, is where we have a value that I suspect is not universally accepted, and we haven't lent into. So this is where as much as I'm daunted, I'm also excited. It's where we are right now. I'm talking about it.
Yeah, and I think also that's the biggest opportunity we have. If you really want to make a difference in the world, we might never had a bit of time to do it. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying it's a simple fix. There's not like a technology or procedure that's going to fix it, you say, but this is really the moment. Yeah, this is the moment to really rise to be able to do that. And I said it was hard, and it actually starts with the people. And you talk about it in the book. One of the first things, to be very clear, you talk about human magic.
Yes.
What does that mean to you, and how do you came up with this? And why is this actually often the missing ingredients when you have been working with people?
Okay, so I have been in human resources, as we understand it, for over 20 years. And starting out in recruitment first as a specialist, on a different, not a generalist route. And I worked in the UK in it with, with organizations in banking, and also banking, the kind of extension financial services, and also IT at the time in terms of providing human resources solutions to organizations such as that. And then since I moved back, and you can hear, I am Caribbean rooted. Antigua and Barbuda is my also home, and I've worked up and down the Caribbean in hospitality, particularly luxury hospitality. So that gave a kind of a backdrop from which I started to kind of practice my HR. And you'd say about human magic, there was always something, yes, so trained, and those who kind of know the kind of standard structured, HR approach that's using recruitment, of competency-based questions, of a certain way of designing people's strategy, of you may even be doing psychometric testing, all of that good stuff. But there was always had a sense that something was missing. To how you teed up our conversation, is that you're interviewing, but you always get a sense, if you are an in-tune leader, not just HR, an in-tune leader, business owner, founder, you're like, I'm interviewing, there's something missing. There's something that I need in my business, but there's something missing. I'm assessing everything that I'm supposed to do. Technically, they're hitting all the marks. You're looking for an accountant. You're making sure that they understand financial statements. You're hiring a chef. You're making sure that they know the foundations of running a kitchen, operating a kitchen, and cooking. But there's something about the person. And now we've moved many along the path of values-based of recruitment. But often what you find that those values that you're assessing somebody against they're values of the organization. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? You are looking for individuals who will help your business to achieve its goals and ambitions, and its mission. So when you're looking for those kind of technical skills, then absolutely, yes, it is matching that. But then we're hearing the language about, we don't just want, fit, we're wanting contribution. And if we're interested in that space, then comes the missing piece, the human magic. And I'm sure, again, like all of us, it's an intuition. And my work is like following my intuition first. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I had a plan and a structure and a grand design. Absolutely not. This is something over time by paying attention. And I realized when I was interviewing, because I started off as a recruitment specialist in interviewing, I would be the annoying pain in the proverbial, that I'll go off to my script, my competency-based script, and I'm having little chats and the side chats. Oh, you said that. What are you interested in? I see that you've traveled. And I realized that the more I delved into that side, after, yes, I've ticked your competencies that are required for the role in which we're hiring, if you technical, when people started to share their stories and you started to show a genuine, and the keyword is genuine, interest in that person, out came these other skills, these things that are so overlooked, sadly, and misunderstood and written off as soft skills. And yet these soft skills are the very things that, whether not just in hospitality, but every industry are crying out for. Oh my gosh, we need more empathy. Oh my gosh, we need more creativity. Oh my gosh, we need innovation and care and passion, and all these things are missing. But we're interviewing for technical, but we're not fully exploring these areas. And when you're exploring and looking for those evidence of the creativity, not the performative, maybe give me an example of when you did, but the stories of the individuals, the things that they've been through, the challenges, their triumphs, their failures, their dreams, their aspirations, their NAPFORs, these tacit skills, you know what it is. I'm going to say to all of you, you're going to know what it is that when people look at you, you just do a particular thing, people are blown away by it, and you're like, but this is just what I do. It's just something that's natural to me. So your natural genius, start to look for these things, these stories, and there you will find exactly the missing ingredients that we're looking for. Those, what I call super skills, the empathy, the kindness, the creativity, the ability to unlearn and learn and bounce back, and the vulnerability. If you built that trust, you will get the vulnerability, all the elements that you would need to create the other elements of what your business needs. So, for example, in practical terms, if you're looking for innovation, yes, there must be a component of technical skill. Absolutely. We're not saying throw out the old ways. Absolutely not. But innovation in innovation, let's unpack that just for a minute. And Michael, you and I have spoken and bounced ideas and argued about this a lot. So if we're saying innovation that hospitality and any industry is asking for, and say that desperately need to drive their business forward and to survive in these turbulent times, well, innovation, there must be your team or individual you're hiring, or you as a leader must have a sense of empathy, to be able to read the room and the situation, what's happening. You must have a curiosity, because if you're not curious, there is no way that you can start to look for all different ideas, alternative paths. It's just impossible. And then if you're not willing to be vulnerable, to let go of the way you've been thinking or existing practices that no longer work, then Brene Brown says it best. You can't have courage without vulnerability. And then, of course, you add the sprinkle on top. It's like a recipe for a fabulous menu. You must then have the creativity. So these elements that we've been discounting as soft skills, and I would say is because it's been discounted because it's hard to assess. It takes more time. It means that you can't just knock out an interview in 10 minutes. It is that slow hiring. That's when you'll find. And for those that do invest that time, attention, and care, you'll reap the rewards in the kind of individuals and team that you build and the culture that you create. So this is where the hard part, as you say, the brave few that lean into the hard, because most will not do it. That's where the new frontier is. That's where the new opportunities are when it comes to people and building cultures. So let's play in that zone.
I think it's very interesting. In the book, you talk about, there's the standard process, and it could be different. I'm just going to put one up I've often seen, there's a review of the applicant. They are called. Either you have a first interview online or you have it over the phone. And you have a second interview face-to-face, and it's going to be very much focusing on competence, yeah? Yep. And then some behavioral question afterward in service situations. And then you might do a reference. I think reference check, everybody should do them, but often it's also how you do them.
Yep.
And then you hire. That's typical, the normal process.
Correct.
Many. And then when you get under pressure, you will jump something in this process. But you also talk about, this method is in principle almost become like a machine. It's soulless, I think you talk about in the book. Talk a bit about what you see out there of practices that's actually, and the barriers that's within them, and how they actually are damaging the brand people are having, and also what it means. It could mean commercially as well. There's two. There's the brand, and then there's the commercial loss as well.
Okay, so I have a saying and now a motto that underpins the work that I do. And well, first, my belief system. And for, I imagine, many of the Mavericks listening in today, and the client work that I do. And the line, it says, hospitality begins in-house. And for us to understand that your brand's first act of hospitality begins at recruitment, the first part of your process as you're building your team. So I'm not talking about your guest experience, right? You've got that mapped, marketing and your sales have done that. I'm now talking about, you have this wonderful brand positioning. You've got a beautiful property, or it's spec to the particular brand style that you are wanting to put out into the market. You have your ideal guests or customers locked and understand. It's gorgeous, it's fabulous, it's Instagrammable, it's all of that. You've got a fabulous menu. Everything is in lock. Now comes the challenge. And this is the work that I do, which is counterintuitive and maybe unorthodox to many HR, is that often is that, okay, what budget do I have to actually pull this off and get the right people in within the timeline so we can open the doors or we can run this operation? No. The start now, we're saying hospitality begins in-house. Hospitality is your brand's, hiring is your brand's first act of hospitality. I start with, what are you promising? What is your brand promise? Beyond, and how true is it? Because it is a promise. All these wonderful vision, mission statement, your positioning. And then, great, I understand that. And then the question is not your budget, is like, how do we build the team to deliver on that promise? to make sure that this promise that you're promising out into the marketplace to your guests, to your suppliers, to everything can actually be delivered and is true. And this is where you have to look at an alternative way and stay the course and not shortcut it. Everyone in hospitality, we all see the stats and the figures, the labor costs, the cost of labor, the sickness, the burnout, all these things. Read any article, go listen to any podcast, we go on LinkedIn, what we even preach ourselves. But the issue is, yes, those are external industry factors, but sometimes that problem is right close to home, and it's ourselves and how we operate. And we can do something about that. So yes, the governments and the way the world is right now, but we can actually do something about that. And you said about, what is a different practice? So yes, do that way, but let's start with treating. And it's not a religious thing. It's not a spiritual. It just forget even that. It's like, let's make business sense. Give the individuals that you are looking to hire or engage with the experience of your brand and the hospitality that you're wanting to create. So they too, if you feel it, you believe it, and then you deliver it. So give them that taste of that hospitality. So we're saying we want our guests or our customers to feel seen, to be understood, to create a sense of belonging. But yet still your recruitment process is the absolute opposite of that. So how then, and this is where the other side of human magic, how then can you expect a team to consistently deliver those experiences if their experience of your brand, right, is completely the opposite? The ask is too much. So this is where, we've got a cheat code in hospitality. Absolutely. Is start with treating that invited, how you invite someone. Is it rushed? Is it hurried? Is it you don't care? Or have you crafted a personal phone call? You've actually crafted an email that actually sounds like a human being to invite someone to interview. When they arrive at interview, have you actually created the time and space without the distractions, that is conveying that your workplace is chaotic or you're chaotic, to actually interview someone? And have you taken the time to even read their CV or their resume or their application form to understand a little bit about them? Or are you so crazily thinking, I just need a bum on a seat or someone to get behind the line immediately? So those human things, before you even get to asking the questions about empathy, creativity, and all those things, those unique way of asking questions and stories and putting the candidate first, is simple cheat code. Start with practicing hospitality there. And you already begin to close the gap between your brand promise and the team's ability to deliver on that promise. I've worked with many openings, beautiful, stunning properties. Oh my goodness. And the lack of, and marketing and sales and marketing have done a phenomenal job. But the lack of investment in hiring the right people and training them accordingly, the right leadership, and creating the right conditions for the feeling and the creativity and your brand to come to life, the lack of investment there and the lack of care, imagine that's going to hit you in the pocket. I'm tapping my pocket right now, that the guests or the customers arrived, and guess what? The experiences is less than a bad taste, poor reviews that perhaps they're not putting it on TripAdvisor or they're not putting it or anywhere else. They're actually telling everybody about it. And guess what? You're probably having to comp in some way, shape, or form. That's money that you're losing, right? Because somebody's had a bad experience because of the wrong person hired or the lack of training or the lack of correct leadership on the floor. So those are, to me, are the start with hospitality. We've got the cheat code. Start there and then build the new formal process.
And it's very interesting. You start with actually also, what is the business about? Where is it going? What does it need to go there? And it's actually less about the SOP on how we're hiring, the practice, getting that written down and following that systematically.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you maybe need a systematic approach to make sure there is some areas, and it's quite interesting. I'm hiring right now in a business, and they say you change the process depending on who you talk about with. And you said that we need to be more process led. I said, yes, there is a process, but sometimes I cut one thing out because actually it gives more sense to see that person together with the team than it actually gets to know the technical skill and have technical interview It's
Mm-hmm.
actually getting that person in together with the team and hear
Mm-hmm.
what the team thinks. And then I never jump this far, always take references from
Yeah.
them and check their stories, with two people. And
Yeah.
I first question I always ask is, would you hire this person again if you had the
Yeah.
opportunity?
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a minute of doubt, I know there
Mm-hmm.
is something I need to investigate. It doesn't mean I will not hire that person because I never
Yes.
know what the story was, but I
Exactly.
know I need to go, as you talk a bit beautiful about, you are like an anthropologist. I haven't seen that since my professor in business school talked about you are organizational anthropologist, and
Correct.
your job is walking around asking questions about what's
Mm-hmm.
working and not working in the organization and
Correct.
why we're doing things like we do around
Yeah.
here.
Michael, I have to jump in and say, I love the point that you made about references. And I think this is something that, we shortcut. And this is where, for all of us, the skill of discernment or the
Hmm.
mindset of discernment and knowing where the same way as we would in the operation, running the operation in others, knowing where to cut and where absolutely you must not cut, or the non-negotiables. And that element needs to be, that understanding needs to be transferred also in this space of, people, culture, and your employer brand, and how you put your team together. So the example that you said about, references, again, please understand, we're not reinventing the wheel. You must hire. We're just challenging how you're doing it and what you're doing. You must train and develop. We're just challenging how you're doing it. So the point of references is, too often references aren't even thoroughly done in the way that you're describing. And using that discernment that somebody may have had they're just not a fit or suitable to the organization where they're leaving. They'll be better suited in your organization. So if they need more structure, or they bring a particular skill set, but they're in the wrong role and the wrong company, and they're underperforming over there, but they'll be a star in your organization. I'll give a tip to anyone is do peer references, not just the references from HR, not just the references from the founder or the leader or the manager. Peer reference, because at the end of the day, if you're serious about designing your culture with intention and your team dynamics with intention, as you said, Mike, you're looking to bring in a new team member that is not a culture fit, but it's a culture. They're bringing their own unique, what a missing ingredient is, I'm doing this, into your team. So you got to make sure that if there's going to be an element of disruption, which is maybe what is required, or if you need that seamless fitting, how get a peer reference, somebody who's worked alongside them or one of their direct reports, particularly for a manager. I am telling you, you will get another insight and a whole more complete picture of the person that you're looking to bring in. You don't want any foxes in your head house.
No, and I think also it's really interesting to say, and I was thinking about it's a couple of months ago, I hired a person, and it was quite a critical person that you're dealing with, a very important client in their job. And I actually went and looked if I knew anyone on LinkedIn that had some kind of working relationship
That's
with
it.
them
Mm-hmm.
from my past. And that was
Yeah.
actually an old colleague of mine. They were from McDonald's. And I could see they were not directly linked with each other in the organization, but I thought I will get an honest answer and just reach out to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it cost me a LinkedIn message and a phone call, and I catched up with a friend, 20 minutes. But I knew enough to know this was the right person then, because
Yeah.
I'll just ask the questions. Would you enjoy working together with that person again?
Mm-hmm.
Why? How did they deal with difficult situation? Which was because you're client facing, you will have difficult conversations, and I need somebody to be calm, not to panic in that job. And it was really, really value. And many people don't do the time here, as you say, because they're just waiting for that standard letter from HR or the boss or the founder.
Yeah.
And they will always be positive in the way because they have no interest making the future of an employee difficult. So it's very rarely you get the honor. So where else can you actually seek stories about this person, as you talk about in the book?
Yeah.
Where do you get the stories from this person? Yeah.
So I think to close off something, yes, we are mavericks, but also we are mavericks, and both Michael, we're both HR trained background. So we know, again, the maverick, where you do maverick, is not something that is going to be illegal and break the laws. The laws of your particular jurisdiction, there's certain things, I'm still enough of a traditional HR in that to say, listen, we've got to be careful that, you're not breaking any employment laws wherever you're operating. So we drop that aside. Okay. So where else to find stories? Again, it is the how you're interviewing. So the model and the framework that I propose, and this is based from everything that I've done, the ways that I've done it that seemed kind of crazy, wild, and unorthodox. To get my strike, and I'll just say, I'll be a little bit of a brag here. My strike rate for nailing the correct hires for an organization, I'm a good 95%. Have I ever really quantified it? And no, I haven't, because I just knew, I never got volume, but doing that, taking that extra time and those questions, and it's the kind of questions that get someone thinking, because you say, where do you find out that information? So everything that we are doing, from the first interview, from the application or their CV that comes in, and then you're interviewing down to the references before you hire them, it's like a golden thread. You're making sure that the stories that you hear, or the information that's presented about that person, whether themselves or others, you're connecting to make sure there's a thread of truth is being woven through it. So, for example, in the interview, where else to find these stories? And the keyword is stories. Technical interviewing, you're doing can you give me an example? And it's logical. It is absolutely. What you're wanting now with the stories is to find out, where are those other human qualities and skills hiding in things that you would discount, challenge, or whatever, or an experience. We are hospitality. It's an experiential. Oh my gosh, it so doesn't define traditional industry category. It is about experiences. There's a magic in that. So how can we only apply technical logic to getting the right people to create that kind of experience and magic? Doesn't make sense. So the kind of questions, and there's gifts of plenty of these in the work. For example, I remember, and it's in the sort of sitting with a candidate who's particularly nervous, had obviously completely rigidly learnt how to answer these, the STAR method of answering the interview questions is whatever. And I thought, I'm getting the polish, as you said, but I'm just not getting a sense of the person. Everything was ticking the boxes, but I'm like, something is not right. It's either they are that way or there's something hiding. So I just threw in, and it wasn't a random. I'm like, I need to get their personality and their character out. So I asked about, can you tell me about, a smell or that takes you back to a moment where you are most happiest? What is it? And the literal back in the seat, and a moment of, was it permission? Perhaps, I don't know, because it's unexpected, but then also that moment, and then the mask slips a little. However, there's a caveat. You cannot do this unless you have created in that interview space a sense of trust that it is okay. There is no way I would be revealing a bit about myself if I didn't get a sense that it wouldn't be used against me, or this was not the place to do it. So it is on you as the interviewer, as the leader, to make sure you create those spaces of psychological safety, or safety where someone can actually feel comfortable and trusted to drop their mask. But the story that I got from that then started to tell me what I needed to know about this person, that their empathy, that they can feel, that they're able to read a room, that they are able, and then it led to other questions when you're, about what they stand for and why, and when have you had to rise to challenge when it wasn't comfortable. Then I could weave in those questions that got the stories that, yes, would tick into other competencies, the technical ones, but it also tick into who they are as a human being, and those 10 super skills that you would see. Now, you will recognize them. It's who we are as human beings. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your gender. It doesn't matter your nationality. These are universal human qualities that we all have innately. And it's down to us to pick which ones you want to amplify and invite into your organization. I would say this, it is very different. Like we throw around invited and welcomed. Now, with technical interviewing and those technical skills, that is what my organization is. Transactional. My organization needs this particular skill set. Do you have it? Yes, no. Have I checked it? Great. That's transactional. But if you're asking someone to bring, and we see these phrases banded around, and I love them, but we will roll our eyes as well. Bring your whole self to work. Yeah. Again, first, It has to be invited, but it has to be a genuine invitation that this is a place, a safe place to do this. But if all those conditions are good, then you then have to ask for these stories that help you to determine and help the individual to determine. So as much as you're interviewing them in this kind of interviewing for stories, story alignment, is they're interviewing you too to see if this is going to be a great place where, I as a candidate, this is a place where my skills and my experience and myself can actually help carry the story of this business forward. And also, by being part of this company, I feel elevated. I'm proud. I can see myself growing, not technical growing, but growing as an individual. When all of those line up, gold, alchemy, let's go. It's an incredible thing. You probably know that you've done it, but you may have done it because you just intuitively do it. But also it's like, what if we did it consistently? And this is when I just get excited about this. We've got this cult of the one rock star or the star. What if you had a whole team of those? Why would you put that burden on only one? It's either are you lazy or are you lacking courage? No need to answer. But imagine if you had a whole team of these incredible individuals.
And I think it's also because you don't see the effect of this so quickly. You need to hire them right first. You need to onboard them right. Then you need to get them working. And you will probably look at a period of 6 to 12 months before you really see the human magic. But they will feel very unsafe when they enter a new job. And then your job is to take them down to safety.
Yeah.
And some days it go really well. And other days they are totally shot down from the moon, because
that's
they're
right.
taking in some new information. And your job is all the time to say, okay, you look like you're not safe right now. I need to take you down through the why, how, and the what, and who and you need to talk with.
And recalibrate you. But to your point, that's, if you've got an established business and it's already set, you've got some bad legacy issues in your culture that you probably wish to change and are there. And there's some great stuff. So you'll have to, that skill that you just described of navigating that is important. The one place, the chaos space, the eye of the storm space is in an opening, and it is the best time. You have actually a clean slate. This is your chance to get it right from the outset, to be brave, to be courageous. Yes, you set your vision, mission, your purpose, all that great stuff. And what happens often in an opening doesn't matter whether hotel, for hospitality. And we know the cost. We know the stats of how many hospitality businesses fail within 5 years. Are you crazy going into opening a restaurant? We know all of that stuff. But there are those that are doing it. But in an opening, you have that chance. And it's to where you investing. It often, all the energy is in your financing, your look and feel and outfit and design. But that, at the same time, you should be designing your culture, the interior. This is where I say culture architect needs to be upfront and early, not after you've done all that. You've run out of time, energy, and probably money is looking low. So what ends up happening? You're just in crazy hiring anybody who can possibly come and just work for you. You've missed an opportunity. Whereas if that design thinking is right at the outset, at the start, it's in that chaotic time, but that's when you can absolutely position your business for more optimum success, where you're aligning the exterior, the outside, and the inside. So you're setting yourself up to succeed even better, because your internal structure, team culture, and everything is absolutely built strong enough to sustain the framework, what your promise is out there, and all the obligations that you would have to your customer, your bank, whatever else, to make it profitable. That's a two skill set.
Yeah, I think really in openings or new beginnings or whatever it is also getting started in proper time to do this, because you talked about it's a slower process,
Correct.
but it's important it's slower, and I think when I've listened to all these great maverick leaders I've interviewed, including you, and it always come up this concept I call hire slow, fire fast, because when you get it wrong, as you say, at those 5%, you cannot wait. They are harming the culture. It's now. You need to react no matter what. It could also be they've been around for a long time and don't like the change that's coming
Mhm.
around. And you get to that point, you're thinking, I can't turn that person around. They're not going to buy in our new
Mhm.
way of doing things and how we have to do things commercially or from a values point of view. You need to act. And I see so many times, actually, people hire very fast and very slow
Oh
to
gosh. Yeah.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
then
that
wonder.
really harms them more than anything else, right?
Correct. Yeah. And it's that it sends, it sends such a dangerous signal to everyone connected to your brand. It sends a dangerous signal to the existing team members, the ones who are actually probably excellent, or the ones that are pretty good and but are looking for that. Well, if they don't care enough, if the whoever owns or the leadership don't care enough to make sure that the right people, to use your you use this often, the on the bus, or the right people in the organization, well, I will certainly start working to spec, to bare minimum. I am just going to, because why would I give my extra if you're willing to carry someone who is not contributing, or again, you're not being brave enough, that maybe they technically brilliant, but values wise and how they operate is a disaster. The brilliant jerk, right, is a disaster. And you've made this crazy trade that I'll take the technical brilliance and then somehow don't worry about if their values are causing, mayhem within your operation, and then wondering why engagement, poor service, the knock-on effect then begins. So the key thing with that slow hire and then the fast is then again within the law and with dignity. It's horrible having to fire. I've seen the way you do it, giving someone dignity on the exit. It's never nice. Sometimes all of us can trade some horror stories of having to exit someone horrendous. But the key thing, if it's done with dignity and it's soon, and you set that person up to move on to pastures where they are best suited. But the key thing is you've got to save your business, you've got to save your team, and you've got to save the experience and your brand for your guests.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I think Ari Weinsweig is also a reoccurring guest here on the show. And actually, one of the next thing I really would like to talk with him about, he's been writing a lot about dignity. And it's not just as a leadership skill, it's also like how you approach the world in a fragile world. And it's super interesting. Yeah, dignity. How do you have dignity about
Yeah.
when because also it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
You have made a mistake. It's always the leader says.
Yeah.
If you're pointing out of the window with one finger, there's probably three pointing back at you. You have to look in the mirror and confront the brutal facts, as Jim Collins write about in the book Good's Great. There was another thing I noticed when I was reading your book, and I know you really well, and I was not surprised to hear these many of these super skills. But how did you get to 10 super skills, and how did you choose them, and what were your inspiration? And you also talk about where you got inspired from in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why those and why 10? Yeah, why not 5?
So I know, and why not 3? Why that number? Okay, so once I started to realize in distilling, I've had, before writing this book, I'd been playing with this. I'd designed selection materials, there's ebooks, as I started just to hone it. But when it actually became to, how do I put this in a valuable and useful, practical guide for anyone who believes in this, but they can use it straight away. So I needed to have a framework. And the key thing, I'm very conscious that often anything HR is consigned as, on the not serious business, sadly still. And then also I'm there talking about human magic. And that's like the dangers of, oh my gosh, this is going to be all woo woo. No, it is actually rooted in science. So yes, there's part of me is like, hey, what? I'm going to have to, stand on the shoulders of giants. So actually, much of this is rooted in behavioral science. Those the individuals who have gone before. So whether it's the inspiration, it's like, where is the evidence of this? I know instinctively and intuitively, and I'm touching kind of head, heart, stomach, wherever you feel your intuition, that this was the right way. But this in history and in writings, but where's the science back? So the first, before getting to science, one of the hospitality's icons, and that I quote liberally, pay homage to, is Danny Meyer. And he speaks in his Enlightened Hospitality, in the book, was it 2006? Oh my gosh, Setting the Table. And he speaks about how phenomenally successful. And it wasn't expressly stated. It was more about the philosophy of putting employees first, which was already revolutionary at the time. But very little, there's a few lines, and then in his talks and everything about what is it? How do they do it? And he talks about HQ. So we know IQ, we know EQ, HQ, a high hospitality quotient. And of which he says when they're hiring or they're building their team, they're looking for six kind of these human attributes, of which optimism, empathy, kindness, and a few others are in there. And I thought, okay, that's great, but it's not science, still hospitality. And then I looked at Adam Grant, Brené Brown, Todd Kashdan, the scientists with the doctorates. If I'm having a bit of an imposter, they're like, hey, they've got the qualifications and they're known. And whether it's the originals for creativity, and whether it's Dr. Todd Kashdan on Curious, I'm like, oh my gosh, there is this thread. And then the big one, and I'll say for any hospitality leader or anyone aspiring in hospitality, Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, 87. Mapping of emotions. We are in an emotional, psychological, experiential business. You understand how human emotions, the good and the bad, the light and the dark side of it, that kind of like a whole. 87. That's a little bit too much. But then now the HR in me was like, okay, well, how do I turn this into a manageable framework that, can be used for hiring? So all of this knowledge, all of this is in organizational design, culture, in behavioral science. That, okay, well, how do you turn this into recruitment? Yeah. And 10, and I just think 10 is always 10, is a good number, is a number that resonates with us as human beings as manageable, but still stretching enough for depth. And then pick the top 10. And the top 10, not individual in their own rights, but the top 10 that in the various combinations of them, they create many of the things, many of the elements, whether the experiences that we want our employees, our team members to create and deliver these amazing experiences, unforgettable, memorable, magical experiences that we want our customers and guests to experience. And also not just the customer, but also we want the team to be sharing that and feeling that with each other. And that's how you build that muscle within your team. So that's how it kind of the roundabout, how it came to the 10.
And it's really interesting in the book. I was just sitting and finding it as you were finishing there. Like, there's also a bit of help, and I don't know, Nicole, you have to correct me now, but it was me that was putting this into my recruitment process. I will look at the headlines and say, for example, resilience we have here. And then there will be questions for resilience. This is not the resilient question, but there will be a question for resilience. Is that important for your business right now where you are? It could be, maybe it's not important, but maybe it is. I think it's probably very important to talk about resilience, especially at a leadership level. How do you can you actually contribute with that? And you might have your way to find resilience and you can contribute to make other in the team better. Because actually, again, it's all about the quality of the relationship we have with each other in the teams that depend the terms, the quality of the outcome of your service and your profit and so on. And I thought it was really, I was reading through these. I was not surprised. I was thinking about Atlas of the Heart. I knew you were building it on that. And I had to go back and look at it now. It's over there. I can't read it, but it's over there. I had to look at that as well. It's heavy, and where you have actually helped. And I thought it was so interesting just to talk. Why did you think resilience was so important to put in there? Because we always talk about, we are resilient business, we can just take it, and we have this bravado about resilience. But when I read yours, that's not what resilience is about. And I think it's such an interesting skill. And I had an interview this morning. I actually started to talk with this person that should be a manager in the business, talk about resilience. And it was very interesting what that person thought about resilience was the opposite what I was trying to figure out. And resilience was about planning. And for me, in my view, preparing is resilience.
Yes. So the part of the world that I am from and I proud to call home is Caribbean. And my home island, yes, the English accent, but yes, I am both. My home island is Antigua and Barbuda. And Antigua and Barbuda's beautiful paradise, but we sit smack bang in what is kind of the hurricane belt zone. So we know as individuals, or whether you're Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts, Dominica, there's a few other islands that typically right in the middle, if you look at the map, the Caribbean, at certain point in the year, although kind of shifting, that you need to be prepared. Readiness. And it's not whether you are, something you can control. It is something that's happened. But the key thing is how you come out at the end of a storm. So you might be prepared, but then next, it's just light storms. It's, we don't get too fussed if it's, category, as tropical storm or category 1. But when it starts to go up, and you can see, you've heard in the news, Jamaica recently got a bad one, and it literally decimates not just you personally, your home circle, but your livelihood and industries in a whole country. So that you have to be prepared. So the drawing on that readiness, and it becomes a muscle memory of being ready and being prepared, but holding the possibility of what could hit you and not hit you very loosely. So in it is that flexibility. And the key thing in resilience is having that flexibility, that ability, not just to bounce back to what you had before, but it may be that something has happened. You think of that storm, any storm, for the rest of it, what hit us, all of us, that we all collectively experienced, the pandemic. Sometimes it's not about bouncing back. As you hear this whole, let's go back to normal. There is, whether you cannot go back, it's just no possibility. So even if you could build it so it looks exactly the same, you've changed from the experience or circumstance have changed. So the whole ability about resilience is that, you are not, you mentioned likely about being not fragile, you have that concept of anti-fragility, is that you have to have that flexibility. So not just to bounce back, but also to be able to bounce forward, to see new circumstances that may have been created out of a disaster, but look at their opportunities to move forward, build better, build stronger, build differently. And that's where the inspiration of really drilling down into interpreting resilience, came from, for that as a criteria. But also it's exactly the hospitality industry. My goodness, our industry is the one that it is so susceptible to any external factor that beyond the control. You could do everything right as a business owner, a restaurant owner, a bistro owner, a hotel, and an external factor, whether it's a government decision, whether it's supply chain, whether it's a store, whatever, could just upend everything that you have built, and you did everything right. So even more so, particularly for hospitality, is that ability, the resilience as interpreted in the book. And we need to look for more of it.
It's just not a leadership skill, in my view. It's also a skill you need for your employees, because the way of service changes in these.
Correct.
If it's like environmental thing.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm sitting in Denmark, and they are predicting a very bad snowstorm, and that will be having huge impact on numbers in restaurants, hotels, and all those kind of things. And therefore, it's not enough the leaders start communicating out the snowstorm. We need to go into plan A, B, and C. It's actually having people that can act in that moment and come up with ideas and take care of each other. Because maybe some of them it's very icy. Your colleague will slip on the stairs up somewhere, and how do you then support them, and so on. And that comes back into resilience as well, where I think it's a very interesting skill to start to recruit for, and actually maybe train in as well. There's not just recruiting, but training in it.
Yeah. And I'd say it's, again, everything, all of the 10, out of how many of our human attributes, it is in all of us. Every single one of us. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. It is in all of us. It is, as you said, is actively looking for it. It doesn't come from a traditional competency grid. It is in people's lived stories and experiences and contexts and cultures. And not be so prescriptive is what it looks like. You have to have a guideline. We're hiring, and it has to have a framework and a description of what it is you're looking for. Somebody else, as I said, what I've given is a starter, a detailed starter, probably a little bit more than others, a book I got, because I realize we don't have time to waste for this, but up to you to customize it to suit exactly what your organization needs. But the key thing is have a foundation, have a baseline, like a par level, but also build in that flexibility and the customization. The key now is human. We're, again, human connection. It's all human. It has to have customization, whether you are, a bistro 1-star or whether you are at the ultra high net worth, super luxury side. Customization is key. That is what we're all looking for. And those that can are the ones that are going to survive and thrive going forward. So this is what we're trying to create, is that sustainability for, in the work that we, in our conversations, our Maverick conversations, and speaking with Maverick community members, how can we look at it differently to be able to build that sustainability?
Yeah, and I think really that's also where the heavy lifting comes in. Yeah, you have to accept you can't just take a cookie cutter approach. You can't hire like McDonald's do, or the Marriott or Hyatt. You really need to figure out what are the questions that are relevant, and then of course start training people in doing interview, because lots of time when managers do this interview also they have no training in it. And then you only train them in these are the steps you need to take, but actually you don't spend time on looking after human stories, which I think is really what we're talking about here today. If you were if I was reading this book, and I hope lots of people out there are going to read this book, and then they think, it's quite overwhelming. That means that whatever I've done up to now, there's lots of gaps I haven't done. But where would you start for somebody that has, maybe had a bit of luck, but knows that there's some, sometimes they get it wrong? Where should they start implement these things in their business to find human magic? Because there's lots of great advice in this book, and, it's maybe overwhelming, but actually you have to give them, here it is. Now you need to go and search and find out what is the first thing you can do.
So the book is structured in kind of 3 parts deliberately. And again, it honors where you may be as an individual, as a business owner, as a manager, as a leader, as an HR practitioner, wherever you are in this belief. The first is that the common belief, the shared belief of, not our people are our greatest asset, but, hospitality begins in-house, that our people, our employees are key, essential to the success of the business, but not in a way of just extractive, but in a way that they are important contributors. So if you start there, that this is for you, okay? Otherwise, this is not for you, but if this is for you. Now, the why is just in case you may be wobbling, this gives the context of the way of the world is heading. And, whether it's AI, whether it's the volatility. I had a new one. We've kind of we've been talking about, was it vulnerable, VUCA? Someone told me the other one the other day, tuna. Oh, what the heck is that? Tuna. And apparently, where tuna stands for turbulent, uncertain, novel, and ambiguous. We're living in a tuna world. That's a new one to me. So we're all of that. But then now, where do you want your edge to be? To do good for people, and the places in which we operate, and also for the planet. But also, you want to run a profitable and successful business, but not one that is at the expense of yourself and expensive of everything else. So that's why. But you could skip that. If you're like, hey, I get that. You can read it through, or you can dip in and out. And then the other section is how. And that's the second section. And that gives you the framework of being able to do this. And that is the model that I propose, and deliberately so, because this is, it's not just for hospitality. It's hospitality as a vehicle, as a common language that we all understand, whether you're in hospitality or not. So the framework for interviewing, as opposed to the other way of structured interviewing, is as if it were a 3-course menu, a conversation. And it's structured that way to, as a common, because what do we all know when we go to someone's home or we have a great hospitality experience? Immediately, the conversations with the story, we feel invited and welcome. So it's giving you a framework to be able to set the stage, to set the table in honor of Mr. Danny Meyer, for that right kind of hiring these perfect individuals for hospitality. So you would have a framework that, instead of traditional interviewing where the company is the hero of the story, you're looking for fit, and then you're interviewing for human magic to hire hospitality alchemists, the candidate is the hero of the story because they are the hero. They're like a hero in the story, and you're after their stories and creating those safe environment and spaces has a lot of food references because food, again, is our common love language, a common human language. So you'll hear it talk about, we are blending, we are mixing, we are creating recipes, because that's exactly what we're doing. So the first set of questions would be appetizer questions, a framework. So you're structuring your interview like that with some amuse-bouche questions that keeps people delighted and open and start to have conversations. And then there'll be entree and then dessert questions to wrap it up. So a framework that's understood by all, but also then the twist is the how you actually execute it and the ways that you can get stories. So in a way, an analogy for you to try and find those stories, if that is not it's because it's a skill. Conversation is an art, like hospitality. It is a skill by practicing. So I use the analogy of truffle hunting. You're on a mission, you're hunting, and you're looking for these truffles, and these truffles are, those human skills and attributes that you're looking for. And like any truffle, that is the price and value of a truffle, depending on whether it's black or white. My gosh, it is like, but it's an ugly, misshapen fungus. Forgive me, chefs out there rolling your eyes. But the value in it. So is that not like our human attributes? So it is building that kind of language and layering and the vividness to take you forward. And the final section is the what. And perhaps maybe I've gone a little bit overboard, but I think it is a new framework. There's no time to waste in the world that we're in right now. It's moving so fast. So I'd rather give you a head start. And you get a set of questions underneath each of these 10 super skills for you to get started straight away. Because the most important thing is, yes, okay, it's not like, yes, buy my book. Of course, yes, there's an ego there. But it's more about you using it. You being able to put it to work for you and your business and for your organization culture straight away. So that is your jump start. And then just let's go. Let's make that change in hospitality. So it's your guide to start that.
Yeah, and it's very interesting. I said before, I used it today because I read it during the last 2 weeks, and I asked these questions about resilience, and it was that easy. Yeah, I'll just write those 2 questions down. I didn't put them into our existing framework. It was a quite senior person I was trying to hire, and therefore I just wanted to ask these 2 questions because I struggle to see that skill in the organization. I need more people to contribute with that, so we get better at that. And that's how easy it is.
Yeah,
and you could see he was not expecting to get those questions.
There you go. Yeah,
and it was a bit of a weird moment, and then we got into it, and then I said, "Oh, so I just helped him as well." So
there you go.
How does it feel? How do you see that? Have you seen that before? How does it come into play? And how would you feel that if I asked you to contribute of helping others to become more resilient? And, and suddenly it becomes a very different conversation.
Very different. Yeah. And as opposed to a fit type interview, which is again important, technical fit. Yes, this becomes a contribution kind of interview and conversation. So imagine you do do both. Again, we're saying is you still must do your technical assessment, right? It's not one or the other, it is both. And then you add this. So you have both, yes, the technical requirements, do they have? But then you also have the contribution to take your business forward, or if you're having to make a correction in an organization. So you're looking for slightly different, the same way it's like, there's a bit of salt missing here in this recipe. I need to add it. What is it? What is the missing ingredient, the missing seasoning? And it's that approach to do it. So that intention is there, that, when you're creating an organizational culture, you're designing it. It's get excited about that, as opposed to HR is an HR job. No, it is part of building your business, building it from the inside out. So I love what you're saying of you've actually practically used it. And I would encourage anyone, when you get it, is to give it a go. And it will feel, if it's not natural to you or you've been doing it kind of intuitively, then great, you have a framework. But if it's something like, this is something I've been missing, but I just haven't been able to put the words around it, here's a starter. Give it a go. And don't just do it once and because you have to get comfortable as the interviewer to then also help your candidates to feel comfortable too. You'll take your interview and the insight into individuals in another level, and it will make your hiring decisions, if you're using the interviewing method, that much more rounded. I will add one tip, and this is not necessarily in the book, And it's some of the conversations that we've had before, Michael, where I think you've asked me before, you said, oh, this is all well and good. And you did this kind of interviewing and it's great. But then what happens next? And therein lies the danger that you've done this and then you then try to plug it into the old ways and you don't take this valuable information that you've gained about someone's seeing them, their unique skills, their unique blend of human magic, right? Their attributes. You don't take it forward anywhere. I'll give you an example. A hotel, a boutique, an independent boutique property here, new GM in having to turn it around from the inside out, right? It's a property that needs serious repositioning. And the key role missing was an HR, a people and culture manager, an HR manager. And the individuals that was wanted, they did practice some of this element of interviewing. Yes, the technical, you checked all their technical skills that they needed because we are in Antigua here. It's also an industrialized environment, but also the technical. But then it's also, this person was perhaps reluctant to leave where they are because they're in chaos. It's draining. It's not aligned with their values, but they're getting money thrown at them to stay because the organization knows we can't afford them to go. But what was done was this interview is positioning, understanding this person's aspirations to do more than just firefighting. And in the interview, by doing the interview that was about letting the candidate share their story, this person was a bit burnt out. They hadn't spent enough time with their daughter. They're working all hours. There are things that they wanted to do. So that was part of, yes, we're offering you a job and it's a fair base pay, but we're going to offer you the things that you said you're missing, this role, and checking that it's possible. You can't promise and it's a lie, that we can actually give you some of the things that are missing in your life. So one of the things, how does it translate? So that information that was learned, the person was offered, accepted. Instead, for the orientation, or part of the orientation was a stay at the hotel with their daughter. Before starting the big turnaround work that needs to happen. But that time, and of course, it honored the fact I hadn't spent time with my daughter, so I was seen. It was understood. My part of my story was respected. But also, let's be real, having the new HR, so mystery shopping, getting an experience. Hello, she gets firsthand. It's her jump start to her being able to start to do the work alongside the GM and the rest of the executive team to begin to turn this property around.
Yeah, because you see the stories you will not be told as soon as you sit in the chair. Yeah,
and also to experience the guest experience herself. So how can you build a team if you don't experience it? But also her story, it honored, I haven't spent time with my daughter. Two of them together, able to stay as a guest. How lovely is that to start it?
And you see the human in that as well. And that's true hospitality. Lovely story to end on here. If people, there was many more questions we could have explored, Nicole. I said that from the outset. I'll just look down over my preparations. Thought, well, that might be another interview.
I know.
People grab the book and things happen. There might be questions to answer. I don't know how we're going to do this, but this is such an important discipline of leadership. I believe it's as important as catching people, doing the right thing, redirecting them and giving them clarity of purpose, direction. This is like how you find your people and the matching in them. And sometimes you also miss them because you didn't ask the right questions. And we didn't even talk about that in the hiring technique. If people want to know more, where can they get the book? Where can they find out more about you? How can they connect with you? And so on.
Okay, so where you can find me and my work, I'm on LinkedIn, and you'll see me posting, in addition to what is in the book, but other ways of just this alternative lens of HR with kind of, anchoring on hospitality, leadership, culture. You'll see the posts and articles, so you can find me there. You can DM me. I answer my DMs, so absolutely. And then also where you can find book is Banana Pepper HR. There's me, but there's also, I do my work through my own company. I'm a founder of Banana Pepper HR, which is a boutique HR consultancy, and it's bananapepperhr.com. So you can have a look there. But the most important is bananapepperhr.com/book. And there you will see the different places where you can purchase and get hold of a copy of Help Wanted, your rule-breaking guide to hiring an extraordinary team of hospitality alchemists. So yes, if Amazon is your thing, Amazon is listed there, but there are other places where you can, Barnes & Noble, Waterstones and stuff, you can get the book there. And those are great places to start of where to connect with me and get hands on the book too.
We'll put all the links in the show notes. And as always, Nicole, Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your friend, collaborator, and making the Maverick universe even better year by year. Not just 1%, but 30 times better every year. Power and energy to the journey, Nicole.
Thank you.
With the book, we will have more about the book as we move forward. We'll try to do some watering holes, as Nicole would say, where we can gather around talking about this. We don't know how yet, but we're going to find a way.
But we'll find a way.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Mavericks. Until the next time. Take care. Thank you, Michael.